Hey everybody, I got a fantastic question from an athlete who recently finished her first half Ironman, and what she's wondering, asking herself, asking me is, can she do a full Ironman next year? And we're not necessarily talking about can she do it physically. It's more about how does that fit into her life, how does that fit into her job, her family and friends. Because naturally, logically, it's common to think, okay, well, I just did a half Ironman and I did this amount of training. So if I'm going to do the full Ironman, logically you think I have to do twice as much training. And then you start to think, well, that's not very realistic, but that's also not true about training for a full Ironman. So people want to know, how much harder is it to train for a full Ironman than a half? And is it harder? My answer is really yes and no. And so I'm going to get into that and give you a framework which will help you decide, do you want to stick at a half Ironman distance, which is, if you keep pushing yourself and going harder, it's still a very hard race. And just because you go longer doesn't mean that that's necessarily better for you. But I want to help you figure out, obviously a full Ironman is a huge accomplishment and you'll feel very good when you cross that finish line. Just different, but for you, where are you at? What are you looking for? So in the way that I would say that training for a full Ironman is not necessarily harder would be in your Monday through Friday. Assuming that, you work a 40-hour week job, maybe a little bit more. If we take your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? That's 40 hours, but you add in a lunch, now you're at 45 hours, you add in commute time and you're easily at 50 hours. Work a few extra hours. It's not uncommon for that 40-hour work week to be 50, 60 hours. Throw in family and kids. Realistically, most people have, anywhere from, could be 30 minutes to maybe 2 hours once in a while. Some people have a little bit more on 3 to 4 days, Monday through Friday. Some people have all 5 days to work out. But if we take that, on average, we're probably looking at 3 to 6 hours Monday through Friday on average. Now, if you take the reasoning and say, okay, that's what I did for a half Ironman, I'm going to double that for the full, this is where I think you're making a mistake, is because what's going to happen is something is going to suffer. If you bump this up to, 6 to 12 hours of training just Monday through Friday, you're probably going to be burnout physically. If you're not burnout physically, you're probably your job performance is going to suffer. If you're in any kind of a relationship or a friendship, you'll probably end up divorced, right? A very common thing. So you have to be realistic about what you can do. And my point is, you're not going to be able to double what you do on the days that you work. So let's not even go there. If we keep your Monday through Friday, just as you train for a half Ironman, as the same as your full Ironman, we can get you to your full Ironman very easily. Now, if you were down around the 3-hour mark, can we bump you up to 4 or 5 hours? That's a little bit different conversation than just completely doubling everything, right? So if you can get an hour a day, an hour and 15 minutes, 4 days a week, or some combination of that, maybe one day it's a tough work day and you get 30 minutes in, but the next day you get an hour and a half in, that kind of thing. So we can mix it up. So the real question, and this is where I say, is training for a full Ironman harder? And the answer is yes, is on the weekends, or if you have like what I call a firefighter schedule, hospital schedule where you work 4/10s, your weekends are different. They might be or I used to work retail, and my weekend was Wednesday, and that was my long day, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that your schedule perfectly aligns, but for sake of emphasis, you have 2 days off that are to yourself. And so instead of, in your half Ironman training, instead of doing say maybe 3 to 4 hour longer workout, occasionally maybe that's a 6 to 7 hour workout as you're in the last couple weeks before your race, if you have a really big brick workout. And then on Sunday, maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3 hours for a half Ironman training. So we're looking at anywhere in general, maybe an extra 4 hours to possibly, 6 hours on the weekend. There's 2 days off. And so now for half Ironman, you total those up and you're looking between 7 and 12 hours probably for most people. And I would say that most people are in the 7 to less than 10 hour range and do very well. You can do very well at a half Ironman training 7-8 hours a week. Absolutely. Okay, so now what happens, we go to the full Ironman. Well, Monday through Friday really stays pretty much the same. This is where you're getting most of your intensity in anyway. And what happens is, these 3-hour bike rides on Saturday become 4, 5, 6-hour rides. The longer workouts, up into the 7 to maybe 9-hour range, getting into those last few critical weeks. And then your Sunday maybe becomes, instead of 1 hour, it becomes 2 hours of training, maybe 3. But now all of a sudden, you're looking at very easily, anywhere from 8 hours to maybe even sometimes 10 hours on the weekend, right? And so let's say take 8 to 9 hours, add that to your 3 to 6, you're at 11 hours. If we go 6 and 9 to 15 hours, 11 hours to 15 hours a week for an Ironman, very doable. You'll have a great race. Most of my lesser performances have come for an Ironman probably really about 8 to 10 hours a week. So my average, just for myself, and it's all relative, I have people that I know that are much faster than me, and I know people that look at my times and think they're fast. So don't get hung up on my times, but my average for my races is around 12 hours. My best times, 10:18, 10:50, and then the third one I think is 11:27. So the 10:18 and the 10:50 definitely came, much more on the 15, maybe even 18-hour range. And a lot of my, let's see, like 11:45, 11:50, just over 12 hours, 12:16. Those came more on an 8 to 10 hour range of training, on average 8 to 10 hours a week training for an Ironman. And then that's all relative. It's just based on where you're at. So certainly if you can get up to this 15 hours a week very consistently, then you're probably going to have a faster time, but it's not going to necessarily influence if you finish the race. Just be a matter of how fast you finish it. So if you look at your Ironman training, and let's say you're doing your half Ironman and you were like at 6 to 8 hours a week, really for very little, bumping up an extra 4 hours a week, you can absolutely train for a full Ironman. So instead of looking at it like, oh, do I have to double everything? Can you add just another 4 to 5 hours a week? Knowing that a lot of that is going to come on Saturday and Sunday. The other thing that I would say is that when you look at your weekends, and you might be asking yourself, well, do I really want to give up, 16, 20 weeks of my weekends to train 8, 9, 10 hours? And if training, 6, 8, 9 hours on a Saturday is very much a commitment, and even I use the word sacrifice, then probably training for a full Ironman isn't for you. The people who really do well and who do them, more than just once are people who, they say, how do you want to spend your day? And it's like, well, I want to go for a 5-hour bike ride. And there's a lot of people that look at people like us that say how you want to spend your day and say, I want to go on a 5-hour bike ride. They think we're just crazy. And that's okay, right? But if you want to spend your day on a nice long bike ride, then absolutely you can do a full Ironman quite easily. Totally lost my train of thought on where I was going with that. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So instead of thinking about it being every week for 16, 20 weeks, think about it this way. Do 2 weeks on and 1 week off. And so now what you do is you say, okay, well, weekend 1, weekend 2, weekend 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this one is going to be a hard one. This one is going to be a much easier workout. Maybe you just go on an hour bike ride and you take Sunday off, or 2-hour bike ride. Same with 6, right? So 4 and 5 are going to be hard. So what you do strategically is you plan your life into weeks 3 and week 6. So you get out your schedule with your family, with your partner, whatever's going on, friends and family. When you want to have a barbecue and you want to have friends over, you plan the barbecue on this weekend, right? So you're not so wiped out. and then you can still get together with your friends. You plan vacation if you can, say, okay, this is a down week for me. This is the week we're going camping, family. If you can, right? And then there's other ways to do it. There may be a situation where you have a wedding this weekend and you go, well, that doesn't really work. Okay, but then you can flip it around and you can make that your easy weekend and this your hard weekend. So there's ways to manipulate your schedule so that you can do a full Ironman without it completely consuming your entire life, okay? So that's my answer. If that didn't answer your questions, or if that triggers more questions, put them in the comments. Happy to answer them more fully. Is it possible to do a full Ironman? Absolutely. It's totally possible without consuming your entire life. It really just depends on what your race goals are. If you want to qualify for Ironman Hawaii, you want to win your age group, it's going to consume a lot more of your life. I'll also say really quickly, there's a really, and you can Google it, 10-hour Ironman training. And the key with this is that pretty much every week, every workout is at your threshold. So I think Saturday is like a 3-hour bike ride and Sunday is a 2-hour run. But these are not casual workouts. These are always pushing workouts. And this is week in and week out, right? And so it's very doable to be fast on 10 hours a week. So it's all a matter of intensity at that point. Anyway, hope that helps. Hope that answers the question specifically for the person who asked it, and then gives some insight for the rest of you guys as well. All right, thanks.